Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Market Mystics. Kim, we're inching our way towards Christmas.
We are.
Are you already have all your gifts done, or are you like, I'll figure it out?
First of all, I love gift giving. It's one of my favorite things. And so I tend to pick up things as I see them if they apply to a certain person. So I'm midway, but I don't feel like it's actually a good thing to say today, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. I don't feel like I have a definite end point or a definite starting point even. So
Yeah.
But before we talk about that, I just wanted to tell you that I got you a little something,
Okay.
and I thought you would really love it. In honor of our time in South Africa, I got you Oryx desert salt and Oryx black pepper. It is a product of South Africa and one of our favorite things that we see in restaurants there.
That's amazing. I am super pumped to put some South African dessert spices on my meals.
That's so funny. Okay, but these are so cute. Look how tiny they are.
They're amazing. They're so small.
They're
if you're just
I know.
listening to the podcast, Kim is holding up little salt and pepper shakers that are maybe half the size of your palm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they have a funny inside joke that with us. So the first time we went to South Africa,
Yes.
we landed in Johannesburg at like 4 a.m. pretty early.
Something like
I want to say it was around 4 a.m. And I don't even think we could check in for our next flight. Like, I think we had to wait a while. So we went to, where did we go get breakfast? I don't remember.
Mug and
Somewhere.
Bean.
Maybe so. We went and got some breakfast at the airport. And we had just finished a
40 hour?
I was going to say it was like a 13 or so hour flight from Dallas to Qatar, and then probably a 4 or 5 hour flight from Qatar to South Africa. And all night long. Was it? Maybe. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's like 8 hours. I don't know. It was a long time.
Like
you got to fly across the whole. You got to fly across the whole, all of Africa. So, anyways, it had been a very long trip from the time that we had left, with only minimal sleeping on the airplane. And so I'm getting ready to put salt and pepper on my breakfast. And I pick this up, and it's called desert salt, but my sleep deprived brain read it as dessert salt. And I just was kind of staring at it in bewilderment, and finally asked Kim, and she about fell out of her seat laughing because she knew what it said, and I did not know what it said.
But it was so funny because you were so genuine about it.
Yeah, I literally thought it said dessert salt. And I was like, what is dessert salt? That sounds cool. And
I know. And the best part of it is, okay, and maybe you don't think the best part of it is, I think you're a pretty legitimately intelligent person. And so it was absolutely the sleep deprivation that would make you see dessert when it was dessert, but it was also the sleep deprivation that made me think it was so funny.
Yes. Yeah. It was a very you had to be there moment, just because of everything that was going on at the time to make all that really funny. But every time we have been back since, and maybe just any time we're eating together and someone asks for salt, Kim kind of looks at me and laughs.
It's true, but I was so happy to see this today. I was not expecting it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get this for Josh. how could I not? But see, this is how I like to get gifts for people. Like it just needs to fit.
Yes. Yeah. I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and they were like, "Are you a good gift giver?" They're like, "I gotta go find some gifts." And I was like, "Okay, here's my answer. If I am just out and about or scrolling online and I see something, I'm like, I could be like, oh, that is perfect for that person. But if you're just like, hey, you have to give someone a gift tomorrow, go buy one, like I do not thrive in that environment. Like I I'm
That's
like if
valid.
it happens organically and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's perfect, then yeah, I'm a pretty good gift giver. But if it is a like you gotta go do it, yeah, not so much.
It's not so inspired.
Right, for sure.
Yes. That's funny. Okay. Well, um, yeah. So on from the salt and pepper, we wanted to talk about today the concept of being limitless and even in regard to goal setting um, and giving yourself parameters or end goals, um, and how in normal society and even in the business world, this is always highly regaled
Mm.
and recommended and a practice that anyone in leadership would ever teach you. But I think we want to challenge that a little bit today.
I love the like thought before we started recording, you were talking about this in context of being deathless. So it's like Limitless in the context of being deathless, which are both books by guests of ours, Nancy Cohen and Tommy Miller. And so I think
Nancy
that's
has
fun.
a book called Limitless.
I'm like 90% sure. I should probably check before I like tell the world that, but I'm pretty sure that's the
I feel
name
like
of
I
her
should have
book.
known this.
I'm pretty sure that's the name of her book.
Okay. Well,
It is Limitless, living the life of an overcomer.
okay then. Well, maybe we'll say some of the same things, but I can tell you I haven't read it yet. But I will go order it after this because I feel bad that I didn't know she wrote that book.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I just think that like those the mindset of setting goals. I think setting goals is great as long as your goals grow with you. I think what can be limiting about setting goals is it's really hard to dream too many steps ahead of where you are. And so sometimes goals become limitations because you don't know how to dream big enough. And so you start creating a pattern of staying within your zone. And I think that is definitely one place where goals can really be limiting, especially what like if you are working on shifting your mindset to an eternal mindset, to a I don't have to die mindset. Like that's already a hard enough challenge. That's already something that's probably pretty big outside of your box. Especially for your body, because your body's record is death and decay, and you have to constantly bring the gospel to your body and remind it that it doesn't have to partner with death and decay. Um, but I think goal setting can be a great stepping stone to achieve those places, or it can be a box that keeps you from getting to those places.
Mhm.
And
Or getting
that's,
past those, beyond
yeah,
those.
getting beyond it. How do you get to the next place? And I think that's like a totally different type of goal. And
Yeah.
that is what, maybe we want to challenge here, because that is like that can be a hard thing to do. So in the context where we first were talking about this was someone who was talking from a financial standpoint, and they were like, I really want to achieve $1 million in my business. And that was like their goal for years and years and years. And then finally their business hit it. And they were like, well, okay, now what? It's like, okay, well, so they set a slightly bigger goal of like, okay, well, maybe my business can have a new space. Like, can I build a building? Could I have like a new property? And then they achieve that. And it's like, okay, well, now what? And um, it really took them on a journey of like having to analyze how they were setting goals because their goal, like they kept hitting the goal, God kept meeting them in the goal, but they weren't actually, I don't want to say they weren't going towards their destiny, but they didn't know how to dream for their destiny. And so they were just dreaming from a very earthly place of, well, I'd like to have a new car. I'd like to have this. And I think one of the cool things is in that conversation with that person, they said what changed everything for them was learning how to dream as a son and learning how to dream from a kingdom place or for the kingdom. Is your
Yeah.
dream big enough? Um, my pastor told me once we were meeting with a group of financial people, and he said, if your dream is have a little bit bigger house, a little bit nicer car, a little bit better clothes, uh, then your dream will be achieved through maybe God giving you a little bit better job because all those things can be achieved just by you working a little bit more, just by you doing a little bit different job. But if you start dreaming for the kingdom, then sometimes God has to meet those dreams uh, with a miracle. Sometimes what it takes to get you there is actually a miracle because your dream becomes so big you could never do it on your own. And I was like, oh, that's just a different way of thinking. It's a different way of dreaming about these things.
Yeah. I think when we're talking about some of this stuff, that I tend to think in visual ways. Like
Mm,
in my mind, I'm imagining this. And I think it's changing from this mindset of goal setting and having an end goal. So essentially, you work, 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 or you really strive until you hit this goal, which is essentially a wall. And then you work on something else and you work, work, work until you hit a wall. I think what we're talking about with some of this is hitting like guideposts, hitting mile markers, hitting stepping stones on your way to something bigger. And I would maybe even say it's your destiny. You know what
mm,
I mean? And even if we bring in your Christian walk and your relationship with the Lord with some of these things, He may lead you to something and you may work for years toward this something. And that feels like the end goal. But have you ever, I know I have, hit one of those things that He's told you to do and then gone, oh, now what? Because then all of a sudden your purpose, it seems to have gone away. And then you kind of are left floundering. But when you hit those tasks or those mile markers, these stepping stones, if you look at it more as a stopover on the whole journey, then instead of being a wall, it's going to be just another door to open into
mm,
something else. And I think it really leads the way into seeking and really being able to step into your destiny. And I think some of these things, when we talk about them, destiny and identity, like you may get something really solid that you are so sure of and that you are driven for because it's what you're supposed to be doing. It is your calling, it is your purpose, it is your identity, it is your destiny. This is it and you do it. But I'm telling you, once it gets opened up to you, there will be more.
mm, for
Always there will
sure.
be more. And I think this is why I want to challenge. And I think this is why we are challenging kind of that mindset of goals as at least I've been taught to have goals in management and leadership, whatever. Because it feels so limiting, you guys. Like, just like you were talking about with your friend, like, is $1 million the extent of where you want to go? And if it is, what's the purpose? Like, are you just going to stay in that room and look at that wall for the rest of your life and go, guess what? I did it. Look at this beautiful wall.
Mm.
This was fantastic. Look at that $1 million sitting there. I don't think anyone really wants that. You know what I mean? And I think this is, I was telling Josh before we started recording, like, I think this is something that we have been building up to without even knowing it. Because how many episodes in the last 2 months have we talked about being stretched and really allowing yourself to kind of press into the tension that's in that kind of parameter that you've set up in whatever it is that you're doing in your life. And it's not to get out of line and it's not to get off the path. It is to see what else is there. And we talked about just the other day, our last episode, we talked about looking for opportunity. This is right along the same lines. Um, and I just think it's not even the biggest mindset shift, right?
No, it doesn't have to be. It's not a yeah. It's not a huge leap. It's just a subtle change where your goal stops becoming an you just stop setting an end goal. Like that's all really this is stopping setting an end goal. You're
Hmm.
setting stepping stone goal. And as long
Hmm.
as that's your mindset, I think it's a great spot. It's just that like this is where I want to be, this is how I want to retire. Like quit setting end goals. Like
For real.
when you're
Did
80, do something new. Like learn something new, start something new, have fun.
right. I was thinking of this example of this in my life. And I'm sure I've talked about some of this before. I went on this journey of like losing a bunch of weight. It was probably about 6 years ago. And I had this autoimmune stuff, whatever, that I was diagnosed with. It was messing with how my body was functioning. All this weight came on. I felt miserable. So I needed to make a change. Different things didn't work. Finally, I sought the Lord. What do you want me to do? Um, and he told me, oh, here's what I want you to do. And so I set out on this path of doing what he was telling me to do to get my body back in line. And when I was doing this, I couldn't go, okay, there's this big long end goal.
Mm.
I had these different mile markers that I had set up. It was like, oh, well, when I've lost 10 pounds, then this. And I celebrated. And when I've lost 20 pounds, then here's this. And I've celebrated. And I did that all the way through 50 pounds and then had like this big thing that I was gonna like, I guess, let myself do. Um, and I have to tell you, I met that goal in like probably less than a year, but I never went past it. And I
Mm.
did the same thing for 5 years. But after meeting that end goal that I had set, that last mile marker, my body was like, oh, well, I don't know where else we're going,
Yeah.
you know? And it wasn't even like an ideal weight. It was just like well, here's what I've planned for.
Right. It was a nice round number. So
It was
it was an easy thing to celebrate, but it wasn't like it didn't have to be where you ended it.
right. Was it the extent of what I needed to do or should have done or what would have been ideal? Probably not. But I told my body this was how far we were going. And
Yeah.
I told my soul, like the whole part of me was like, this is where we're going. And so we
Yeah.
reached our destination and we stayed there.
Yeah. So I think one thing that comes to mind in this is if you hadn't have set any goal at all, you might not have gone anywhere.
Mhm.
So if you have no structure, any structure will bring benefit. So if you have no goal for your life, no direction, then setting any goal will help you move, help you go somewhere. So I think that's really important to take. But that's distinctly different from not setting an end goal. Like I'm not telling you not to have any goals at all.
Right.
If
Yeah.
if it's finances, like if you've never had $1,000, then have your first goal be $1,000. But if you don't just say, well, I want my goal to be $1 billion, like start with something that's obtainable. Maybe that's 500. Maybe it's $500 in savings. Maybe it's $1,000. Like whatever that looks like, start with something obtainable, but just allow that to build and grow and then give your goals purpose. Like don't just make a goal for the sake of making a goal. Have a reason for it. If it is financial, what are you going to do when you get $10,000? What are you going to, if your goal is to lose weight, why is that your goal? What are you going to do with that healthier body? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. You talked about this the other day, um, in a in our conversation before we recorded the episode on opportunity. And one of our previous guests has talked about some of this and celebrating, like being intentional about celebrating when you get to
Mm,
some of those stepping stones.
yeah.
Why? Because it tells your whole being, your body, your mind, soul, everything, your spirit that, hey, we did this thing, we're in it together, and this is the right direction. And you
Yeah.
actually let yourself feel what it is to accomplish something.
Yeah, I mean, your body loves a reward system. Like your body thrives on dopamine. That's why marketing works. It's why social media is addictive. It's why you do almost anything you do. Is because somewhere there is a reward for it. So allowing yourself to celebrate a stepping stone being achieved is super important along the way. Yeah, the person we were talking about was a trading mentor, and he used to tell people as soon as you get $10,000 in profit, go out for a really nice dinner. Like spend a couple $100, spend $500, whatever it is. Like go have a really nice dinner because then your body knows this isn't just numbers on a computer screen. Like this is real. This is changing. And so, maybe is it weight loss and you hit a certain goal and you go buy yourself like one really nice pair of clothes for your new weight. Like I don't know what it is. Like whatever
Right.
your goal is, like find a way to celebrate.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's a personal thing. Obviously, you can work that out. Um, but I guess I want to stop. I want to stop limiting myself. And I really think that the way forward, even with, I mean, just like you said, we've been talking about being deathless for well over a year. When did we have Tommy on?
Oh,
A year and a
I don't
half ago?
remember, but probably over a year ago. Yeah.
Maybe almost 2 years ago. We've been talking about this, I think even before we talked to him, because we'd already been talking about it.
Kind of how we found him.
Right. And I mean, if we're going to be deathless, then why would we also not seek to be limitless?
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because I think death is one of those limitations that humanity has put on themselves, right? I get life for this long and then it ends or whatever. And I think that we're really starting to learn that those limitations don't actually have to apply. But if we submit ourselves to them, then absolutely they'll apply. But
mm,
I think it's applicable in so many other places as well, you know?
yeah.
And it really is, it's a shift. And I think you can start small. You can start big if you want. I mean, you do you, but I think you can start small and it doesn't have to be like the biggest, like hard right turn. You could shift by half a degree and really wind up somewhere different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like half a degree does not make a big difference if you're only going 10 feet, but half a degree makes a big difference if you're going 100 miles. So when we're talking about a limitless, um, immortal life, a half a degree of change is significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the other things I guess I would I'm challenging myself in this too. Like, really, what do you believe about what you're capable of? What do you believe that you're capable of when you're walking as a son
Mhm.
of God? What do you believe you're capable of when you are carrying part of the creator in you? Like, what do you believe are your limitations? Like, when you really look at it like that, you might find yourself like that you've really put yourself in a box. We've talked about this. Like, I'm the master box builder. Like, we do it all the time. But sometimes you don't know until it's pointed out. Like, there's a box here.
Mm,
What if you took the box down? Then what?
mm,
And I think you might just be surprised at how much further you could go, or you could see, or you can even imagine, um, if you just open yourself up to it.
yeah. I mean, maybe your goal could even be, can you make your box 1 inch bigger each day? Like,
Mhm.
it's you probably are always going to have a box, like, that's just how people function, but can you make it slightly bigger each time? That could be
For
a good
sure.
goal. I think all of this, uh, like, goal setting is great, but also, like, I heard this thing yesterday where a guy was talking about, um he came to the realization one day that what he really cares about in setting his goals is how he feels when he achieves those goals. Um, and the what he meant by that was like he at one time wanted to live on a beach. And in his mind, he was seeing like celebrity houses, um, you know, in California or Florida or wherever, multi-million dollar houses on a beach. And then he had a realization, well, he could move to Central America or South America and live on a beach for next to nothing or almost nothing. And so he's like, well, what is it about that I really wanted? And so he said this really powerful thing about if you can narrow your dream and your goal down to how you want to feel at the end, almost always you can achieve your goal without any more money than you currently have. Because the most important thing about that goal is how you feel when you get that goal. And how you feel when you get that goal, how it looks when you get that feeling might not be nearly as important to you as how it felt. And so you can really shift and change that. And if you can learn to really narrow down how you want to feel, I think it makes your goals more fulfilling. And it also probably helps you achieve your dreams much quicker. Because if it's the feeling that's really the more important part, then it doesn't have to be like, mm, I want to say, like, from a financial point of view, if your dream is to have a lot more money, think about how you'll feel when you have that. 'Cause it's possible that feeling will be there when you get 100 more dollars. And that's just I think that's a really powerful way to look at goal setting because it opens up the door to really create a lot of momentum much quicker.
Yeah, for sure. For
Mm.
sure. Hmm. Interesting conversation. I would be really curious to hear from many of the listeners um, how they set goals. If they've ever thought about this, I know we're not the first. Like, obviously, we're not the first,
Right.
right? Um, but it really is something to consider, and maybe what's the path forward for you? You know, have you been at a wall? Can you like realize there's a door there and open the door, or cut a door into the wall? Can you do that?
Yes.
Right? And see what's beyond. Like, how can you go further, or can you take this stepping stone and pivot and start moving all of what you've done and move it into another direction to meet another stepping stone? Um, I kind of love that idea.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I think it's great. I think goal setting is really important. I think your feeling in it is really important. Just don't want you to get stuck. That's
Yeah.
that's my heart for this.
Yeah. Same. Same. I also think this is timely because we're wrapping up um, and rounding out the rest of 2024. We have a new year that is knocking at the door, right? And always it feels like a good time to set some goals and a good time to really be intentional about your trajectory.
Mm,
So I think this is timely.
yeah. No, that's good. All right. Well, listeners, as always, we love your comments. Leave a comment on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, send us an email, whatever. We're here.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for listening. Keep up with us along this journey by liking, subscribing, and becoming a member through YouTube.
Members get exclusive access to bonus content with our guests, deeper dives into topics, and a look into other projects. We're glad to have you here. See you next time.